Hi guys, this is second part of What If Deku Was Like Iron Man. So let's get started.
Chapter 6. Panic and Revelations. Why? How? Those two questions were constantly popping in his head, exchanging places, mixing together and giving him the headache of a lifetime. Power Loader, who was their homeroom teacher, after doing morning call of presence and saying some basic news, dropped a bomb on them. Choose your class representatives, was all he said. And suddenly almost all eyes were on him, their smiling faces, politely, asking him to take the role of class president, and Izuku couldn't wrap his head around it. Him, the nerdy teenager, whose best friend was a computer program. What in the freaking hell? He was anything but social. Sure, he bossed a bit around the store when Stan wasn't there, and after his death everyone called him boss, despite him stating that he would only swing by every other day if he wasn't busy. Izuku asked them for their reasoning, and honestly their answer made him snort. Apparently he tamed Mei, explosive hurricane, Hatsume. Someone said that he was also super smart. He wanted to correct them, he didn't tame Mei. He, despite his earlier thoughts, befriended her. He took his time to understand her by the long conversation they held yesterday. That was all. She was still super hyper girl, that would make them go flying if someone, most likely him, didn't check on her inventions. To prove their point, that Mei would only listen to him, they started calling her, trying to gain her attention and failing miserably at it. Then he just simply said her name, ignoring curious gazes from his class. Like charmed, Mei stopped playing with her goggles, and looked toward him with the curiously of little puppy. When asked who she thought would be a perfect for class president, she just glanced at him, from his toes to head, shrugged and told them that he was. Izuku wasn't sure if he was supposed to be flattered or murder her. Not wanting to be the only one suffering, he proposed Mei as his deputy, which everyone immediately agreed. Pleased with himself, he returned toward his seat. Then, when Power Loader said they could do what they wanted for the rest of the homeroom, he saw a message from Alan, which destroyed his sense of accomplishment. Message being, "You do realize that you'll have to take her bulk of the work, genius." Alan helpful as always. When lunch came around, Izuku made his way toward the cafeteria. Mei's presence was surprising, but not unwelcome. They grabbed their trays, filled them with delicious food and managed to secure a small, vacant table just for themselves. The rest of their class went somewhere else, which was absolutely fine by them. Izuku was used to eat alone, and by the looks of it, Mei wasn't bothered either. Maybe they had more in common than he thought. Not long after, they indulged themselves in chaotic, but completely understandable for them, conversation. But really, why don't you get the superiority of a simple switch or button? Mei huffed, sending him glare with no bite behind it. I'm not saying that they aren't useful, Izuku stated calmly, enjoying her adorable pouty face. But it's not always the best solution. How so? She tilted her head, blinking, clueless expression evident on her features. Think about it. You want to make a super advanced, high-tech baby. He was surprised by how natural it sounded, and Mei literally started drooling at the possibility. And that baby would have many, many features. The amount of buttons, switches and wires you'd have to use to make it functional would be downward nuts. It's easier to just program it and do voice or a gesture command. He didn't tell her he was describing his future billet into heroics. Mei pursed her lips and folded her arms, while her eyes roamed around. Wait, were those lines in her irises spinning? Did it have to do anything with her quirk? He should ask later. Well, I suppose you were right. She sounded like admitting it caused her real pain. But I can't really do all that programming stuff. Her shoulders slumped down. Didn't you try to learn? Programming for him was just like breathing. He spent most of his childhood learning how to properly do it. The reward of his efforts. Alan, I've tried, but I get lost in it and it's super boring. Mei whined loudly, making Izuku chuckle. Well, I consider myself rather good at it, so if you want I can teach you. He flashed a kind smile toward her. Mei instantly perked up and grinned. Really? You would teach me? Of course, we're friends now. Friends. Yeah, that sounded nice. Thanks, Izuku. Mei bounced cutely in her seat, behaving like a little kid hearing it's going to get a candy for doing nothing. Man, it must be really nice to have an intelligence quirk. Izuku blinked. That was the moment he was dreading. Normally questioning about your quirk was asked even before the one for your name. He remembered all those woeful times when he was asked about it by someone, to only hear his answer that made them turn around and go away as far as possible. Sighing, he decided to just get it out of the way. If May didn't want to have anything to do with him anymore, he would manage, just like he always does. It would sting, and deal a serious blow to his mood, resulting in him sulking for a few days. But he'd take it like a man he is. I don't have a intelligence quirk. He saw May blink at him. In truth, I don't have one at all. I'm quirkless. He waited for her to laugh at him. To just stand up and go away. To scream at the whole cafeteria and tell everyone that he doesn't have what almost everyone else does. That's amazing, May shouted, suddenly right in front of him. Giant grin plastered on her face and eyes shining with excitement. Her eyes were really pretty, Izuku duly noted. So all those ideas and all just come from your brain without any kind of boost. Izuku just nodded dumbly, not being able to process what was going on. Wow. She sat back, but still looked at him with a flabbergasted expression. You're really awesome then, Izuku. Her voice was soft, but it carried so much power. He should have thought better than this of his friend. It was May, for crying out loud. All she cared about was making new babies, and having a blast while doing so. She was really simple, straightforward person, but there was also something beautiful about it. Hey, why are you crying? May's concerned voice brought him back to earth. Was he felt his cheeks wet. Izuku wiped his tears away and sent her the happiest smile he could muster. It's just, not many think about me like that. So, thank you, May. He saw her smile, not her usual Cheshire cat grin. Just a normal, simple, kind-hearted smile. It really suited her. Before they could continue their conversation, an obnoxious alarm came to life and with it panic. He heard the generic computer voice calling a level 3 security breach. He vaguely remembered something about it being trespassing. They tried to move aside to avoid the panicked student mass of teenagers, but they were swept by the current and found themselves unable to move like they wanted. Suddenly they were separated by the mob trying to squeeze forward. He pushed through, slowly gaining ground in the general direction he saw her disappear. He stood up on his toes to get a better view, and there, he saw her pink dreadlock and then May herself, pushed against a wall, trying to protect her head with her arms. His heroic heart beat harder and small spark of anger ignited in him. Shoving himself toward his friend, ignoring everyone on his way, he finally arrived in front of her. He then shielded her with his body, supporting himself with an arm against the wall. Don't worry, I am here, he said loudly. Her relieved expression, and a small grateful smile was worth all those elbows striking his ribs and back. What the hell was going on? It was UA, surely they had to have some security drills. He became frustrated at himself. Why couldn't he do something? Except he could. Or more precisely Alan could. If he was able to reach toward his pocket. Unfortunately for him, they were boxed against people and his arm moving was not possible. Well, desperate times call for desperate measures. May, I need you to reach toward my left pocket and put its content on my ear. Why? She shouted loudly, her voice muffled by his shoulder. No time. Do it now. He felt her arm move and take the earpiece from his pants. She had trouble reaching towards his face due to how crammed they were, so he tilted his head to the best of his ability. Soon he felt familiar plastic on his ear. Alan, what is going on? There have been a security breach. Someone as uninvited is on the school grounds. So he was correct. Frowning deeply and getting hit again by someone's elbow, he quickly went over his options. I need you to check every camera and tell me what is going on. We need to get it under control. At once, sir. There are only about 700 of them. No time for sass. Really, where did he make a mistake with his beloved AI? I've got the issue. It's the reporters from this morning. Somehow they got in the premises. Those vultures. Izuku saw them when he wanted to enter school, like a pack of wolves blocking the main entrance. All they wanted was any piece of info about All Might teaching here. When he told them he was from support, they ignored him, which suited him nicely. But now, didn't they know they just broke several laws? Alan, use the school audio system and relay that info. Let's hope it's enough to calm these animals. He wasn't one to insult others right off the bat, but excuse him. He could feel bruises forming on his ribs. As soon Alan's voice came through the intercom, everyone ceased their flailing and evacuation proceeded in orderly fashion, just how it should been done in the first place. You okay, May? He asked, worried she got hurt in the whole ordeal. Yeah, I'm good now. She breathed slowly. Then sent him a sharp glare, which made him nervous. What was that back there? And what is the deal with that earpiece? Izuku blinked and chuckled a bit. Leave it to May to completely diminish the thought of them almost being trampled to death just to learn about some invention. Well, you remember that computer voice that we hear from time to time during lessons. He was amused at the memory when he saw his class going into uproar of questions, geeking out. May nodded to him, Izuku smirked, passing her his earpiece. Well, let's just say I'm a very proud father. He thanked God for giving him such good photographic memory, because now he will always remember her jaw-dropped face. I knew you were awesome. She shouted, hugging him. He had to admit, she was strong, despite her small build. You're pretty awesome yourself, May, he said, returning the hug. Come on, we need to get to the evacuation side for the head count. Only hours later he'd realized that he had a beautiful girl, and her goodies, pressed tightly against him, turning him into human tomato. Nezu frowned deeply at the, now turned to scrap, UA barrier. He didn't want students to see this, so he sent them out using other entrances exists. He took a closer look at the chunks of metal laying on the ground. Some of them were in one piece, but most of it looked like it corroded and turned into dust. He looked to his sides. Aizawa and Majima also weren't pleased with the state of it either. They already checked all of those unexpected guests. None of them had a quirk similar, or powerful enough to do this kind of damage. The only other conclusion being the involvement of a third party. That particular thought greatly disturbed Nezu. The whole thing looked like some kind of declaration of war, only question being, who was responsible for it. Nezu took his phone from his pocket. Alan, do you have any security footage showing someone other than reporters entering school grounds? 1 second, Principal, I'm afraid not. There is no camera observing the other side of the school gate. So 0 leads then. Nezu's frown deepened greatly, although sensors picked up someone blinking into existence near the teacher's lounge. Now, that was something valuable. Did you say, blinking? Aizawa voiced Nezu's thought. Yes, they seemed to appear out of nowhere and a minute later they disappeared. Unfortunately no camera caught who it was and there is none of them in the room itself. Thank you, Alan, Nezu said shortly. His mind was being occupied by many unsettling things. Looks like their enemy possessed a warping quirk, which was a real rarity, even more uncommon than healing ones. He'd need to develop countermeasurements. His hope that he'd have them in time. Chapter 7, A Creative Alliance. Something wasn't right. When the teachers told them to leave school using side entrances, he knew that there was information they were missing. So after he accompanied May to the train station, and returning home, he sat on his office chair staring blankly at the wall for hours. Pursing his lips after coming empty-handed, he deducted that he would need to use the so-called Big Brother. Alan, you there? Izuku spun toward his monitor, which immediately lighted up. If I say no, would you finally go to sleep, sir? It's close to midnight now. You know the answer is no, he chuckled slightly. There go my hopes and dreams. Izuku could imagine him sighing. What do you need me for, sir? What happened at the main entrance today? He decided to cut the chase. He needed to satisfy his curiosity. Reporters broke in. That I know, but how? Izuku narrowed his eyes. Don't try to sell me any crap, Alan, you know that I can just open your detailed thought process. He wouldn't do it, an AI knew it. It was invasion of Alan's privacy. Even if he was a program he wrote, he's a human being to him. Besides, he passed the Turing test. You do realize, sir, that you want me to reveal information that only teachers and police have access to. Yup. Then was a short silence between them, but Izuku saw Alan downloading few files. And I thought, you wanted to be a hero, the sassy AI stated, making him snort. Alan showed him a video in which he saw the famous UA barrier falling apart, some of it turning into dust, and a mass of reporters pouring in, running toward the school like a bunch of animals. There's no way that he'll ever remotely like media. The percent of truth they gave to society was so small, that Izuku long ago stopped watching news channels. Then Alan showed him the school detector log and building map, explaining the situation. So, whoever did that waited till lunch to have most of the corridors empty, and used reporters as a diversion to lure the teachers out of their lounge. Izuku said, drumming his fingers against his desk. Correct, sir. Are you perhaps Sherlock Holmes in disguise? He huffed, not amused by Alan's comparison. Are there any street cameras that show UA entrance? Why do you ask, sir? AI asked suspiciously. Because if there are any, I want you to break into the city cameras system and find the feeds. Izuku stated seriously. He wanted to protect his school and schoolmates from any kind of danger. That's what a hero would do. I didn't know that we switched business to villainy, sir. Cheeky program retorted. Izuku let out humorless laugh. Are there any, or no? Unfortunately, sir, there's none. The two closest ones are at the junctions, which is quite far away from the gate. He sighed slightly, waving to Alan, signaling that he was done for now. Slipping under his duvet, and finding a comfortable position, he drifted to sleep. Tomorrow was going to be hectic, so he needed as much energy as he could get. And hectic it was. He could see some seniors from the hero course, going around the school, keeping a keen eye on any sign of trouble. Teachers constantly doing head counts, and looking behind their shoulders, like something was going to strike them at any given moment. And he couldn't really blame them, as he also felt that strange kind of dread, keeping him on high alert. He informed Power Loader that he's going to be slightly late for lab. When asked for a reason, he answered, going to visit our beloved psychopath. Power Loader just laughed at it. When he told May that he wasn't going to stay for the whole lunch, just a quick meal, she happily exclaimed that she's going to get a head start with today's dose of baby making. He made her swear that she's going to eat something later, on which she reluctantly agreed. She was going to be the death of him, he was sure of it. He made his way towards the principal office. His mind mulling over everything he wanted to say, he foresighted it to be a longer than simple chat, but this was important. If he was going to be a hero, then he'd need to start somewhere. Helping his principal with upgrading school defenses seemed like a good start. The humongous double doors that hid Nezu's office from the world at the end of the corridor opened, and through them stepped out a walking skeleton. This man was so thin and sickly looking that Izuku thought a simple breeze would knock him over. Shoulders slouched forward, blonde hair in total mess and eyes sunken deeply into skull. And why was he wearing a suit, at least 4 times his size? Suddenly the man started coughing, putting his hand against his mouth. It sounded wet, and like his lungs were going to be ripped from his insides. Izuku quickened his step, gave the man an arm over his shoulder and started massaging his back in circles. It always worked for him, so maybe it'd be helpful here. After a few moments it seemed to be working. The man's breathing returned to normal, and he unclasped his hand, showing Izuku red spots marking it. Without a second thought he pulled his package of small tissues, and gave man one, who looked thankful, albeit a little surprised. Thank you, young man. Then Izuku's mind came to an abrupt stop, 1,000 red flags rising up per second. Despite his voice being raspy, he knew it. Getting a quick reboot, he did a fast checkup. Super tall, check. Suit that could contain mountain of muscles, check. Blonde hair with 2 bangs in front, check. Electric blue eyes, check. Ultra-familiar voice calling him, young man, check, and check. He was sure, he was mumbling at Mach 1 speed, but it didn't matter. Shocked, he could only ask for confirmation. All Might, where? Man shouted, and started nervously looking around. Yup, that confirmed his suspicions. Folding his arms on his chest, and hardening his gaze, he could only press forward. I'm not going to be kid by such a simple trick, All Might. Beside, I can ask Alan to do voice comparison. He didn't mean to sound so rude, it just sort of happened. All Might sighed in defeat, and frowned deeply. He waited, and waited, and waited, staring at Izuku nervously. Don't you have some questions? He finally asked. Izuku raised an eyebrow. Questions? Oh, believe me, I do have a ton of them. And most likely after you answer them, I'll have some more, but right now I'm too busy, so maybe someday later, he stated, simply scratching his cheek. All Might blinked at him, shock evident on his face. Why aren't you like, I don't know, freaking up or something? Izuku sighed, resting his hand on his hips. Too much on my head right now. I'm going to freak up at some ungodly hour at night, when I'll have time. He really would do it later. All Might watched him for a moment more, before he chuckled. You really are something else, young Midoriya. He smiled softly. Just keep it to yourself, please. It's important to me. His voice was serious, which wasn't that surprising. I know, I'm not the kind of teenager to gossip. Besides, you're my 3rd favorite hero. Izuku smiled a bit. I need to get going. See you later. No wait, I shouldn't call you that. Izuku frowned, thinking of proper way to address the symbol of peace. My name is Toshinori Yagi, my boy. Yagi-san stated. Thanks. See you later, Yagi-san. Izuku stepped through the giant door into the principal's office. It seemed that nothing has changed from his last visit here. Spacious, fluffy red floor-covering carpet. Dark wood furniture, most of them being bookshelves filled with books and folders. At the center stood Nezu's giant desk, that was completely covered with huge stacks of neatly sorted papers, behind it a large UA logo. "Oh, young Midoriya, what a pleasant surprise," Nezu said from the armchair in his conversation area, near the windows. "Come, and sit down on the couch. Tea is still warm, so maybe you would like some." Principal sent him a polite smile. Izuku smiled back as he nodded. He couldn't imagine a long talk with Nezu, without the cup of aromatic tea. Sitting on the couch, once again marveling at how comfortable this piece of furniture felt, he took his steaming cup, and sipped a little bit of the warm drink. He also vaguely wondered if it was Nezu coping all might with that young prefix, or the other way around. "As good as always," he stated, giving the principal a smile of his own. They both sat in silence, and Izuku used it to sort through his thoughts, trying to predict how the conversation would go. He wasn't sure how to start it. "So, why do I owe the pleasure of hosting a brilliant boy in my chambers?" Well, that was one way to start a conversation, Izuku supposed. He knew that Nezu loved playing verbal games. Izuku also enjoyed them, but today he wanted to get straight to the point. Mirroring Nezu's posture, with his hands neatly folded on his lap, he sighed loudly. "I'll cut the chase and get to the essence of this visit. I know exactly what transpired yesterday, courtesy of Alan." He looked right into Nezu's eyes while saying it. A smirk passed the principal features, before returning to the small smile, but his eyes shone with excitement and mischief. My, young Midoriya, I've never imagined that you would even consider doing a thing that could cause you to be expelled," he said with small chuckle at the end. Izuku's lips twitched slightly. "I'm a future hero. You cannot expect me to sit quietly and do nothing." Nezu allowed himself to let out a short laugh. "What is the point of your visit then, if you already possess the information? I want to offer solutions that are going to keep the school safer." He smirked and leaned a bit forward. "Consider it a help from a beloved student, good friend, or business partner. Choose a more suiting one." Nezu's lips stretched further, bouncing in his seat. "I'm all ears." His small ears twitched when he said that. Izuku drank his tea before continuing. "For starters, digitize all information about students, teachers, school schedules, and other important documents. To protect them even further, create a special server for them that's going to be completely separated from school network and only accessible through Alan. Don't worry, he's too advanced to be hacked by someone who doesn't know how he operates." Izuku saw Nezu nod, a pleased smile on his face. "Next step is to increase the number of cameras, especially ones looking at the gates. In school there's still some blind spots that could be covered. Alan already marked them on the building plan, and delivered them to you for inspection." He took a breath. So far so good. "And lastly, a counter-measurement towards the warp quirk user." At that the principal shifted slightly. "As it was documented, all warp quirks leave the trace of their energy behind whenever the portal is opened. I believe that I mean Hatsume-san, can build a device that would be able to track that energy and alarm us before portal is fully open. Of course we need to get a good read on it to ensure it works as desired, but it's doable." He took another sip, chastising himself in his head for the slip with May's name. "Also, I believe it would be wise to reschedule UA Sport Festival, and to further improve security. We don't want a villain attack on such an important day." Nezu stared at him for a moment or two, before smiling brightly and clapping his paws. "I'm impressed, young Midoriya. To think that it took you only half a day to come up with those solutions, maybe even less. Oh, and don't worry about the way you called young Hatsume. Power Loader already informed me about your friendship and partnership in the called baby making." Principal laughed at the end. Izuku was sure Nezu had a good cackling session when he first heard that term. "It's nothing really. I'm just doing the natural thing and using my abilities to protect this school. And for that I'm thankful. You're going to become a marvelous hero one day, young Midoriya," Principal stated with a kind smile. "When could that device be done?" Izuku adopted his thinking position. "I could most likely get a design ready for it today, and we could start building it during Saturday's open lab hours. If you could allow us to have it accessible on Sunday, then at the beginning of the week it's going to be most likely ready to use. Consider it done." They both sat in silence, drinking their tea. Izuku was pleased with how the conversation went. He felt even a bit proud of himself. Was that the feeling heroes had when they're able to help people around them? He could get used to it pretty quickly. "Now, is that all, or do you have something more that involved breaking the law?" Nezu asked with an amused smile. Izuku was sure that he's never going to ever live that one through. Actually yes. But it's more of personal request. You see, I'm having a bit of trouble with getting one material. I've placed my request for it, but its arrival is still far away, and it's going to be a major setback in my work. Oh, is it for that project? Nezu asked with an excited voice. Yes, I assume that you remember your deal about it, right? The principal asked, and Izuku simply nodded. Am I correct to assume that you want to ask me to pull some strings and get it shipped faster? Another nod, this time more sheepish one. I see, unfortunately, it's Power Loader who holds more power in that department, and if he can't get it earlier, that surely I don't have better chances. Izuku frowned at that. He really hoped to start already on it. He had most of the materials ready and even upgraded them with school supplies, at which May helped him. She even gave him some tips at how to better do a thing or two. But do not worry, young Midoriya. I do believe I have a solution for your problem, Nezu said with wide grin. Momo waited for her class to empty itself. She needed to ask Aizawa-sensei about the specifics of her new duty as a class president, which unfortunately she didn't have time yesterday, due to the earlier release of the students. She gladly took that position when it was presented to her. She was also pleased that she convinced her classmates to give Asui-san the position of her deputy, when she tied with Iida-san. She didn't have anything against him, she respected his determination, but she felt that he wasn't suited for that role. He seemed a bit too passionate about everything. She preferred the more level-headed frog girl. She also couldn't deny her utter happiness when Mineta lost the election. She feared what would happen to her and other girls if little perverted student would be given power. Not that it had ever going to become reality. She was the last one to leave from her classmates and caught Aizawa-sensei nearing the exit. That was her chance. The teacher opened the door and paused, looking down. Oh, genius boy, what do you want? Aizawa-sensei said in his usual tired voice. Genius boy. Momo heard that term before. Mike-sensei, and Midnight-sensei said it a few times while thanking Alan for something. Apparently that was their way of referring towards the AI's creator. She shivered at the memory of Midnight-sensei admitting how she loved to play with the poor boy. That would be considered as an assault, right? Eraserhead. Oh, so you're 1A's homeroom teacher. Hope you're not too hard on them. Genius boy said. Wait, Momo knew that voice. She heard it many times before, and there's no way that she could mistake it with someone else. Stepping next to the Aizawa-sensei, she saw the familiar bush of green hair with black roots, happy emerald eyes, and kind smile. Midoriya-san, she asked surprised, gaining his attention. Yaoyorozu-san, it's nice seeing you again, he said, showing her a wide smile that he always has every time they saw each other. It's nice seeing you too, she admitted, smiling politely. I don't have time, so say what you need, or get out. I don't want to be late for my nap, Aizawa-sensei stated, his voice suggesting his patience running thin. Actually, I was looking for Yaoyorozu-san, Midoriya-san said. Momo quirked her brow at that. Questions developing in her head. She saw her teacher leaving the room, and remembered why she stayed behind. Sensei, she said, getting Aizawa-sensei's to stare at her with evident annoyance. It's not her fault that he had a messed up sleep schedule. About my duties as a class president. Go to the representatives' lounge near the teacher's room. There you'll have all you need, he told her quickly, and continued his trek towards wherever he left his sleeping bag. Momo sighed at that. At least she knew now where to go. She turned toward Midoriya-san, and saw him waiting patiently for her to finish her business. Well, there was her answer at why was Alan so well behaved. Sorry for that, Midoriya-san. You said you were looking for me, right? No worries, nothing happened. And yes, I have a favor to ask, and the principal said you're the one that can help me. He looked into her eyes and scratched his cheek. That was his way of showing he was nervous if Momo's memory served her right. That depends on what you need, but of course if it's in the range of my abilities, I'd be happy to comply. Polite down to the T as always. How about I show you? It's in the support workshop. Of course if you have time, I don't want to be a bother, he said concerned. Momo smiled kindly at the smaller boy. He always was considerate of others' well-being, and that spoke a lot of him. I'm free now, so I'll gladly go there with you. Midoriya-san brightened at her words, and they made their way towards the support department building. Although the silence was a comfortable one, she felt like they should have a small chat. She hadn't seen him in a while. He looked slightly taller, Momo duly noted. I didn't know that you were interested in engineering. But it's not a surprise seeing as you were the one to program Alan. She honestly didn't have anything better. Midoriya-san chuckled silently at that, and turned his head toward her. Well, I've never mentioned it before. And let me guess, the genius boy comment was that gave that away. Momo simply nodded. But being an inventor is not my end goal. How is a hero course treating our store #1 romance manga buyer? He asked with tiny smirk. She laughed at that silly nickname. Every time she wanted to buy new chapter of her favorites mangas, she only came to the shop where Midoriya-san worked. It was how they meet. So far so good, it's demanding, and going to get gradually harder, but I believe that the teachers know what to do with us. Her mind returned a few seconds back. If I may ask, his nod serving her as an answer. What do you mean by inventing not being your end goal? She truly wondered about that. Momo saw his shock, and then he started tapping his chin with his finger with a faraway look. His lips moved, but no sound came out. He seemed to be deeply in his thoughts. From time to time he sneaked a glance toward her. Momo gave him time, her curiosity raising every passing second. Finally he sighed, and looked at her with an unsure expression. Can I trust you? Simple question really, but his voice, Momo knew that tone, she heard it every day in her head. Midoriya-san was doubting himself. Which was odd, he always give off that vibe of being rather sure of himself. Looks like she accidentally found something what could be considered a taboo subject for him. Could he trust her? Momo liked to think of herself as a trustworthy person. Yes, he could trust her. She'd keep whatever he said to herself, and if she was able to help him, then she would. She was a hero in training, and helping people in distress was something that she's going to deal with almost every day. She presented him with nod and encouraging smile. Okay. Midoriya-san took deep breath to calm his nerves. I'm quirkless. Not that uncommon, but still surprising. But all I wanted my entire life was to become a hero. Was this what people considered as dropping a bomb? My life wasn't the easiest one. Nearly every person just made fun of me. All because of my birth defect and seemingly unrealistic dream. He sounded rather bitter, but Momo understood from where that came from. But no matter what everyone says, I'm going to prevail and make this a reality. I'm becoming a hero, and this is final. His drive was truly admirable. He sounded a bit like All Might there. I see. Well then I wish you luck, Midoriya-san. She found herself somewhat excited at the thought of having him in her class. Am I correct to assume that you'll try to transfer to the hero course then? Midoriya-san chuckled and shook his head. No, I'm staying in support. I still want to have my inventor license and open a company. I intend to produce equipment not only for heroes, but also for everyone else. A small smile showed on his lips. That's very considerate of you, but how are you intend to become a hero then? She just needed to know, otherwise her mind wouldn't stop nagging her with that question. She suspected that it was possible. Aizawa-sensei and Midnight-sensei seemed to be the cases, judging by their quirks. Midoriya-san grinned at her, giving her a strange Aizawa-sensei's excitement vibe. Do you know what SNHQT is? She almost choked on air, and didn't try to hide her bewilderment. That was his chosen route. You mean, the standardized national hero qualification test? She asked in weak voice. No, that couldn't be right. Oh God, he was serious, his smile looked bright as always, but his eyes were sharp. The standardized national hero qualification test was a special test for all those who didn't go to a hero course in high school, but wanted to become one. It also served as a purpose for checking if a hero, who was charged with some serious accusations, or had been on long leave, was able to continue his work. Her uncle, who's part of the government, once told her that he had the chance of seeing one. He said that it was brutal, and ended the whole conversation with a dreadful expression. You do know that it's 1,000 times easier by transferring to the hero course, right? She knew that may come out rude, but this situation was something else. Well, I want to prove to people, and myself, that I have what is necessary to become a hero. His features turned softer, and lips changed into a small smile. Besides, it's just another mountain for me to conquer. Nothing new in my life. Momo stared at him for a few moments, before smiling brightly. He really moved her soft heart. Thank you for sharing that with me, Midoriya-san. I believe that you can turn your desires into reality, and I'll gladly help you with it. Midoriya-san turned toward her, and presented her with miniature sun for a smile. His eyes shoved gratitude. Thank you, Yaoyorozu-san. This means a lot to me. Besides, you're about to help me. Before Momo could ask what he meant, he stopped her. She quirked her brow and tilted her head. Midoriya-san stood next to the wall, and seemed to sneak toward the huge metal door. He then extended his hand, made 3 rapid knocks, and quickly backed away, while shielding his head. It's safe. She went to grab a lunch. Came a gruff voice from the inside. Midoriya-san relaxed. We've someone that is, quite an explosive person. He explained while chuckling. They entered, and her nostrils filled with a scent of oil, metal, plastic, and some chemicals. The room was spacious, every student at their station working busily, giving her a passing glance of curiosity. Power Loader sat behind his desk, checking something on his computer. They made their way towards the back of the room, where she saw Midoriya-san workplace. Neatly sorted tools on a side table with wheels, on the main one some device in parts, and chunks of various metals on one side. On the other 3 monitors that displayed various programs, showcasing data and designs. Next to it all stood black machine in the shape of rectangular box with white, glassy surface. From its corners come out supporting beams that held, what Momo assumed, 2 projectors turned towards device surface. Midoriya-san made his way toward it, and she followed, intrigued by the purpose of machine. He handed her a black earpiece, he himself already wore one. She put it on. Hello, Yaoyorozu-san, Alan said politely. Right, Midoriya-san was the one to develop AI, it'd be strange if he didn't have a way to access him. Hello to you too, Alan. I see that my oh-so-great creator decided to entwine you in his project, he said somewhat snarky but not toward her. Hey, it was the principal, who suggested it. Midoriya-san defended himself, pouting slightly. But it was you, who decided to go with it, sir. Alan retorted. The two continued to banter back and forth, and Momo found herself amused by that. Was that how friends, or siblings acted? Anyway, Midoriya-san said, breaking the argument. Alan, show us the arc reactor. Momo raised her brow at the name of his project. Soon the black machine gave out a soft sound, and she was amazed. The device came to life, and showed her a 3D green picture of different parts. She saw them laying on his workbench, that soon joined together to create one image. It presented her with some kind of cylinder device. This is an arc reactor. Midoriya-san said with a prideful voice. It's supposed to generate a great amount of power. I won't go into details now, trust me, it would take a while to say how it functions. Momo nodded. It looked rather complicated. I see, but I don't understand where my assistance is required. Midoriya-san began to touch the image, and once again it turned into parts. He took one, and it changed color to orange, highlighting the whole structure. This piece here is a palladium core. Without it, the arc reactor won't work. He frowned, and crossed his arms on his chest. The problem is that the school doesn't have any, and my requested shipment is at least a week away. But I need to build one as soon as possible. Without it, I'm going to have to hatch a new plan on how to become a hero. So that thing was really important then. Well, she promised to help him. So am I correct to assume that you want me to use creation, to make some of this palladium, right? Creation? He asked. Oh, she never told him, did she? Yes, that's the name of my quirk. It allows me make any non-living matter as long as I understand its atomic structure, by using my lipid cells as a fuel. She informed him. Then the mumbling storm reached her ears. She saw Midoriya-san in his thinking pose, lips moving faster than anything she ever witnessed. His eyes locked on her figure, shining with admiration and excitement. Momo wasn't sure if she appreciated the sudden attention or not. He's so lucky that I can understand and record all he's saying. Alan said. Momo completely agreed with the AI. Suddenly Midoriya-san stopped, his face red, and a nervous chuckle escaping his throat. He scratched his cheek. Sorry, I'm a bit of a quirk enthusiast, he admitted. No problem, I find myself interested in them as well, she said with small, amused smile. Back to the topic, could I ask you to do it, Yaoyorozu-san? He asked a bit pleadingly, at which she nodded, gaining a bright smile, that quickly turned into a small frown. I have to warn you though. The isotope that I require is a bit radioactive. Concern was very clear in his voice. Momo blinked. She had some experience with that. She once created a bit of uranium in a controlled environment. Don't worry, at worst I would get a mild rash, but that depends from the amount and its potency. But I should be fine. He looked revealed at that. Midoriya-san asked Alan to present her with information about palladium, which was extremely detailed. First she created a container for the material, at which Midoriya-san gave another mumbling storm like the real quirk enthusiast he was. She then proceeded to make palladium in the requested form, giving him double the amount he needed. To say he was thankful would be an understatement. They said their goodbyes, and Momo made her way towards the school exit. The halls of the building were empty, not counting a girl with pink dreadlocks that passed her running. Momo thought about what she heard, and did for Midoriya-san. She liked him, he always had something interesting to tell her, whenever she visited the comic book store. And after today she found herself strangely attracted toward him. His determination, his drive, she remembered when she saw him helping her, other customers and employees around the shop. He always had a huge smile plastered on his face. Now she understood that it was all part of his heroic spirit showing itself. She would help him, she promised herself. No matter what, she was going to make sure that he prevailed. Before she exited a support department building, she heard loud explosion, which immediately was followed by Midoriya-san voice screaming, "May!" Chapter 8. Building a Treat. In May's mind, the only thing better than 6 days of using the UA workshop to produce all of those adorable babies was 7 days of doing exactly that. She couldn't thank Izuku enough for the present he gave her. When he told her that the principal himself gave them a special request, she knew that was her chance. If she, the wonderful inventor, Mei Hatsume, was able to show the principal her brilliance, then that would no doubt open her some new doors. Izuku explained to her why they were building it. Needlessly to say, it wiped her grin off, and dampened her mood. Hearing the gravity of the situation, she understood why that baby needed to be made as soon as possible. They decided to do everything together. They had time for it, and neither of them wanted to accidentally jeopardize the success of their first real baby would no doubt make. So despite her wanting nothing more than just go right away into building, she listened to the voice of the reason, that was her intelligent baby-making partner, and took the step back. Turns out it really was needed. During Friday they designed a special detector, that would be linked to the already existing sensor system all around the school. Whole baby was relatively small, but it needed many components connected in the right way. She had to admit, even she couldn't build it right off the bat. Plus she got to use the super awesome holodable to make the blueprints. It was so much fun. Unfortunately they couldn't pre-program it. Izuku once again showed his marvelous knowledge, and explained her, that every warp quirk had a special energy signature original for its user. So until the potential attack happened they were only preparing for securing school in the future. During Saturday they begun the slow process of piecing together their new cute child. Thanks to Alan running 3D printers all night, a significant bulk of the work was lowered. But things like electronic boards would have to be made by hand. She saw Izuku struggle with it, so she gave him tips at how to do it more efficiently. He looked grateful, blinding her with that sunny smile of his. She briefly commented that she wondered if she could use it to power something. The idea itself was ridiculous, and make them share a good laugh. They stayed till late evening, working vigorously, only stopping to get something to eat. Izuku threatened her with dragging her out by force, and banning her from using the holodable, which was a big no-no. She fell in love with that baby, and wasn't planning on allowing it to be taken away from her. Mei was actually glad that they went out. Getting to know Izuku was very important to her. How otherwise she could understand him better, making them even better baby-making duo. Plus he was fun to talk, which was a real bonus. And now on Sunday they made finishing touches, and started programming the whole thing. Well, Izuku programmed, his hands a blur on the keyboard, hitting multiple buttons at one time. She just sat next to him, listening to him explain her what different parts of code were responsible for. It was still black magic to her, but he seemed to make it somehow more doable. But still, she learned the best when she did things with her hands, and minded it. Not just her brain. Taking a hold of the situation, she thought how to fix it. Simple solutions always were the best. She couldn't take the keyboard from him, but what she could do was take a place in front of it. Standing up, totally ignoring Izuku's quizzical expression, she pulled his chair slightly away from the desk and plopped herself into his lap. May. His voice was strangely tense. Yeah, she looked behind her, to see his very red face. Was he hot? It was warm today, so that could be a possibility. What are you doing? He sent her a strained smile. I learn the best when I do stuff. So walk me through all that programming thing, and I'll do my best to remember it all. She turned toward the monitor, and awaited her instructions. Slowly they made their way through it, and Mei found herself understanding more than before. She had to admit, Izuku was a great teacher. He took his time, slowly explaining what was what, stopping her when she wasted to rush out, and corrected her when she made a mistake that she didn't know she did. She had changed her position several times, trying to find the best one that allowed her to work to the best of her ability. The most effective and comfortable one turned out to be her sitting sideways on Izuku's lap, and leaning into him, with his arms around her waist. Mei didn't know why her face was hot, she blamed the weather for it. She smelled his mint shampoo. She loved mint, she told him that, and once again he reddened. He looked kind of like a strawberry with those adorable freckles of his. After 2 more hours of developing the software, checking it for any potential bugs, and installing it into the device, their detector baby was finally ready. They both smiled at themselves, proud of their work. And the best thing was that nothing exploded, sparked, or started burning even once. She patted herself on her back for it. "Hey, Mei," Izuku said, gaining her attention, while they made their way out of the school. "Do you want to get something to eat? I'm not really hungry." She pursed her lips. "Oh, how about ice cream? I know the place nearby." She bounced up and down at the idea of getting the glorious chili treat. "Yeah, sure." He smiled lightly. Mei grabbed his hand, and started running toward the ice cream shop. She once again found herself marveling at how gloriously rough his hand was. When they came near it she was panting slightly. But Izuku looked like he didn't even sweat. She added fit to her mental list of bonuses possessed by her partner. Izuku tried to offer paying for them both, but she denied it by slapping her money on the counter. In her mind she was paying him back for that lunch he bought her earlier in the week. She was delighted by her mint and chocolate ice creams. "Lemon and apple, are they good?" she asked him, while they're walking back toward train station. "I think so. I've been eating them since I was like 5, he chuckled slightly. Intrigued by that, Mei decided to test it herself. She grabbed his hand and lowered cone toward her. She took a generous lick, where the 2 scoops met, completely obvious to Izuku's shocked face. The slightly sour taste of lemon, and gentle sweetness of apple filled her mouth, and mixed with remains of the mint flavor. So that was how the heaven tasted. She never felt so refreshed in her life. She hummed in delight, and turned to yet again red Izuku. "You need to try them both with mint. It's divinely delicious." She almost shoved her cone into his face. He reluctantly licked a bit of her mint scoop, and mixed it with his too. She was overjoyed when his eyes go wide and smile brightly at her. "Wow, you were right. It tastes super good," he happily admitted. "Of course I was right. If I didn't have a talent for engineering, I'd be making ice creams." "Oh wait, we can make a baby that would produce delicious icy treats, and sell them in school." They both laughed at the thought of such a machine. Soon they arrived at the train station, and parted their ways. They lived in different directions of the same line. At least if one wanted to visit the other they didn't have to make any transfers. Mei was happy, and somewhat sad. Happy because she got to spend time making a beautiful baby with Izuku, that would make their school safer, and earn them gratitude from the principal. And she learned something new, believing that programming would come useful somewhere in the future, and she wanted to learn more about it, by coaxing Izuku into teaching her, while sitting on his lap. Oh, and she added 2 new things to her list of Izuku being awesome partner. Him being fit, and ice cream gourmet. But she was sad, that they needed to go home. He was such great company. Sure, she'd see him tomorrow, and have a chance to talk to him, bounce off ideas, share a good laugh, make some babies. She blinked. Was that how it felt to have a friend? Yeah, she had her parents, that said almost every day, that they loved her, and all others members of her big family. But this was different. Now she didn't have to sit alone, and eat her food, she had someone to appreciate her work, and admire her genius. Was Izuku her friend? Absolutely. Was she his friend? Heck yeah she was. Smiling to herself, she wished that she could make a baby that would make time go faster. That way she would see Izuku sooner, and have that strange, funny, but welcomed, feeling in her stomach again. Chapter 9. Better than a cave. Izuku wasn't one to swear. Sure, from time to time he said, shit, or, crap, but he was raised better than that. He disliked the crude language that angry blonde Pomeranian spoke fluently. But he couldn't help but say, fuck, in his mind. He dreaded this situation, and did his best to develop several contingency plans over the weekend. He even made backup plans for them, and backups for the backups. All to assure that this very particular situation would never, ever happen. But of course he couldn't foresee this. He really had to piss off God in his past life. This was it, he was sure of it. That was literally the beginning, of the end, of the world. And all because Mei met Yaoyorozu-san, who couldn't find a free sit to eat her lunch. He was absolutely terrified at how fast the two of them became friends. He had seen Yaoyorozu-san's bounciness before, but never to such degree. Mei also was ecstatic, because of her new friend. His partner right off the bat said to use her name, and Yaoyorozu-san happily suggested to call her by the nickname her class gave her. He had to agree that Yaomomo sounded cute and suited her. He was happy for them, he really was, but god damn it, why it was him dooming the whole world to perish in the flames of Mei building babies with the help of creation. Izuku took a deep breath. Okay, he still had a chance to be a hero and save world from the doomsday. All he needed to do, and there she was, Yaoyorozu-san telling Mei about her quirk, coincidentally ripping to shreds his only hope. And did Mei's face just turned into a sun? Her excited features made him have to squish his eyes. Wait, why was she panting? His saving grace was in form of other girls from Yaoyorozu-san's class joining them. Oh great, another pink, hyper ball of utter boundless energy. Did the people with pink features had it in their genes to be so enthusiastic about just everything? He also recognized a girl, who he accidentally saved from being crushed. Ochako Uraraka, she introduced herself to them. She seemed nice, and Mei liked her. It was good to see her making friends besides him. Hey guys, you're from support, right? Jiro-san asked. What's the chance of you two making us some gear? He and Mei looked at each other and immediately indulged themselves into a mumbling storm of wild ideas, both overjoyed at the possibility of producing equipment for hero students. He caught the shocked and uneasy stares of 1A girls directed at them. Excuse him, he may want to become a hero, but he still wanted to build things. Sorry for that, we're just really excited at the possibility of making you guys equipment. He said the truth, which made them all chuckle. Don't you need to know our quirks for that, hero? Asui-san asked, tilting her head. No need, all support students have access to the personal profiles of the hero course, although just the quirk and body measurements. Mei explained, grinning widely. And if we need a specific information, Izuku can just ask Alan to get us a more detailed ones. All girls, besides Mei, and Yaoyorozu-san, looked at him with wide eyes. Wait, you have free access to that awesome AI. Ashido-san voiced their thoughts. Midoriya-san is the one who developed him. Yaoyorozu-san stated. Izuku sighed. Well, it was bound to happen eventually. He just didn't expect it to be so soon. He caught Uraraka-san looking at him with gratitude. He smiled kindly at her, signaling that he knew. Girls looked thrilled at that, and started to praise him. He wasn't a snob, but it felt good being praised for his work. Why you named him Alan? Uraraka-san asked curiously. Alan Turing was the man who has built the precursor of modern-day computers. I thought it was fitting to name him after him. Izuku stated with a smile. Oh, that's nice. We must thank you, Hagakure-san said, making other girls nod. For what? He asked puzzled. We have a male student in our class that sees women body as a Yaoyorozu-san tried to put it into nice words like a proper lady she was. He's a pervert, Jiro-san said bluntly. All girls, even Mei, had a displeased expression. Yes, that. On our first hero class, Alan told him that he's never going to put him in the team with a girl, or against one. He didn't want him to legally assault us. Yaoyorozu-san shivered at that thought. Izuku sighed happily. He was so proud of his AI. Oh, and he also makes funny nicknames for Bakugo. Uraraka-san happily added. Izuku wanted to murder Alan. Why did he have to do that? Yeah, on the first day he changed his name to Angry Blonde Pomeranian, and the next one all might asked us, completely lost, which one of us was Boom Boom Boy. Ashido-san said, making everyone except him laugh, or chuckle. Oh, and another time he gave him a nice burn. Hagakure-san supplied. He said to him that today he felt merciful enough to just call him Firecracker. Jiro-san ended, while snickering. Did Alan wanted to get him killed? What did he do to his beloved AI to throw him right into the burning barrels of nitroglycerin? Sure he could deal with Bakugo, but it involved him making it look like Firecracker always was right. Alan was basically saying that Izuku was up for the challenge, which he absolutely wasn't. Midoriya-san, you look pale, are you alright? Yaoyorozu-san's concerned voice brought him back to reality. He turned toward the girls and gulped loudly. Girls, I need you to swear to me that you will never tell Bakugo that Alan is my invention. Seeing their quizzical expression, he simply added, he knows where I live. All of them adopted somber expressions. Mei's and Yaoyorozu-san's eyes shone with clear concern. Looks like 1A already knew how trashy Bakugo's personality was. Midoriya-san, I meant to ask you. Yaoyorozu-san started, wanting to change the topic of conversation, which he was very grateful for. How is your arc reactor? Before Izuku could answer, he heard something snap in front of him. He gazed at Mei, who held a now broken chopstick. Her whole body shook, and her face was marred with betrayal. He saw tears forming in her eyes. All this raised one enormous red flag in his mind. How come that Yaomomo knows something that I don't? Her voice absolutely broken. I thought that I was your baby-making partner. A lone tear fell from her eye. Oh, he screwed up. He felt like he'd just killed a million puppies in front of children. To Mei, their partnership was more sacred than marriage. His heart clutched with guilt. He promised himself that from now on he would tell her about his future projects. His heart wouldn't survive another scene like that. Before he could answer her, he heard a faint, "What?" and suddenly remembered that they weren't alone. He looked at the girls, their faces pure bewilderment mixed with deep blushes. Yaoyorozu-san covered her mouth with her hand, eyes roaming between him and Mei. Wait, he quickly pieced it together, and couldn't help himself but laugh loudly. Mei, be so kind, and tell them what, baby, is to us. He barely managed to say it. It was just too hilarious. She sniffed, and looked toward her new friends. That's how we call our inventions, she stated meekly. Someone snorted, and soon they all followed suit, laughing at the absolutely ridiculous thought. Except for Mei, who looked like lost puppy, and sulked silently. Well, time to fix that. To answer both of your questions. Izuku started, gaining their attention. Yaoyorozu-san used her quirk to make me some material that we didn't have in the stockroom, and I'd have to wait till the end of the week for it to arrive. Which I cannot. That's how she learned about the arc reactor. He saw her perk up. And about a state of the project. During the weekend me and Mei had a special build to do, but I finished most of it during Thursday after we vented our lab. Today I'm going to complete it, and run a basic diagnostics. Maybe tomorrow it'd be ready to activate it. He smiled at that thought. He really wished that I would work. So, we're still baby-making partners? Mei asked, sounding pleading and hopeful. Yes, Mei, we're still making cute babies together. He said with small, kind smile. He was rewarded with her giant, million-yen smile, and a small bounce. He couldn't marvel at how adorable she looked. Smiles and grins suited her the best, without them she wasn't his Mei. Wait, what, brain? Still, I'm a bit mad at you. Mei cutely pouted, trying, and failing miserably at sounding angry. Sorry, it's just something I'm not sure if it's even going to work. Besides, it's potentially dangerous. Izuku scratched his cheek. Dangerous? How so? Uraraka-san asked, lining forward. All girls looked at him with curiosity. He just smiled weakly, giggling a bit. Well, if something goes wrong, then the best case scenario is a citywide blackout. And the worst? Ashido-san pushed forward. Let's just say that I hope I'll be remembered. He knew that this sentence shouldn't be said with such serenity. Suddenly he remembered something very important, which made him ignore everyone's scared faces. His other special project. He turned toward Yaoyorozu-san, who despite the shock at his words, still had red on her cheeks, and grinned at her. Actually, I have a support item ready for you, Yaoyorozu-san. She raised an eyebrow. I've left it in support department this morning for Alan to install the software. He quickly turned to Mei, who was ready to pout yet again. And you can't be mad at me. It's a, thank you, gift for the Palladium. Mei huffed, but a smile soon crept on her features. Momo followed the baby-making duo, as they dubbed themselves, to the support department. Her cheeks still felt hot from the situation earlier. Looking back at it, jumping into conclusions was silly. She was positively surprised with how fast she and Mei clicked together. The pink-haired girl had the same unlimited energy like Ashido-san, and was a little eccentric, but once they started talking, she couldn't contain her bounciness at the prospect of another friend. Her second week at UA had just begun, and already she had more acquaintances that liked her for being her than she had her entire life. She was overjoyed by that. Her mind returned to the moment when her classmates talked about how Alan teased Bakugo. She had to admit that she found herself enjoying his suffering, even if it was unbecoming behavior for a future hero. But Midoriya-san's reaction worried her greatly. He was so white, whiter than he ever was. Like life was leaving him. His request and comment suggested that he and Bakugo had story. Which explained Alan's hostility towards the explosive blonde. She wanted to ask him about it, but it wasn't the time. It looked like another, taboo, subject for him. So until the ideal situation arrived, she would withhold her questions. As a hero, and his friend, Momo wanted to help him. Besides, she doubted that she would get anything useful from Bakugo aside from a litany of profanities. When they arrived at their lab, the bell rung, signaling that her hero training lesson with All Might would begin soon enough. She asked her classmates to inform him where she was, if she didn't arrive on time. It left her a bit uncomfortable, but she didn't want to be rude towards Midoriya-san. He told her that he had pulled an all-nighter to finish it in time. Besides, she was really curious what he made for her. She believed that support items wouldn't be beneficial for her, due to creation, but Midoriya-san was one of the smartest people she knew, so she gave him the benefit of doubt. All of 1H was slowly filling the lab, getting ready to work. Midoriya, Hatsume, why are you still in school uniforms? Power Loader Sensei asked, coming next to them. We'll change in a minute. I just want to give Yaoyorozu-san a support item I made for her. Midoriya-san stated. Power Loader Sensei and Mei stood next to her, and waited, all of them curious. Her pink friend was bouncing on her toes with a gleeful face. He checked something on his computer, and nodded to himself. He opened a drawer and pulled a pair of glasses. Not the typical looking glasses. In place of the lenses was one piece of red-tinted plastic. There was a simple rounded cut at the center, so it would sit nicely on her nose. It was slightly curved, to make whole gadget elliptic, and a bit wider than her eyes. On the left side was earpiece with 2 buttons, that would cover her whole ear. On the right she saw a mechanism that would go around her ear and shut to keep whole thing stable. Finally there was a plastic regulated band, that would go around her head. All in all it looked well made, and futuristic. Midoriya-san passed her the glasses with a huge smile. I really had to do a good brainstorming session to come up with those, but here there are. It admit it presents itself very good. Momo said, eyeing the gadget in her hands. What does it do? You said that you need to know the atomic structure of things you want to create, right? Put them on, and I'll continue. Momo raised her eyebrow, but complied. After regulating the band to keep the whole thing secure around her head, and locking mechanism around her ear, she nodded at him to proceed. Okay, so upper button is for power. He simply stated. Momo clicked it. She gasped slightly when she saw a welcome popping out on the screen. Now, Alan, say hello to Yaoyorozu-san. He smirked slightly. Good afternoon, Yaoyorozu-san. His voice resonated in her left ear. Good afternoon to you too, she replied with a short chuckle. Every part of it is reinforced, and the plastic is bulletproof, so whole gadget won't be broken so easily. Now anytime you need to make something you don't know, you just say it to Alan, and he'll quickly gather information, sort through it, and present you with list of ingredients. If you don't know the component, ask him to split it further up. I've set the display timer to 10 seconds, but if you think it's too long, or too short Alan can change it, he explained in proud voice. I see, it's certainly useful for more complicated builds. Momo nodded with grateful smile. And I thought that slavery was illegal. AI said in a, I'm done, tone, at which she chuckled quietly. Midoriya-san blinked, and adopted Aizawa-sensei's deadpan look. He said something bad about me, didn't he? Even his voice matched. Ignoring the bratty program of mine, the other button is a save option. Click it once, and the currently displayed list will be saved. Click it again, and it's going to show up. Hold it for 3 seconds, and you'll free up the memory. It resets automatically after you turn it off. So what do you think? Midoriya-san asked, scratching his cheek. I love them. They certainly will be useful to me, and I can't wait to try them out. Momo said, her lips stretching into a huge smile. That's good. Of course you'll need to get used to reading, and doing other tasks simultaneously, but I believe that you can pull it off. He smiled brightly. Her cheeks heated up at the praise. She still was just getting used to it. This baby is so awesome. Mei shouted, and started jumping around her, looking at the gadget. There is a room for further improvements, for example an aim support system, but all in due time, Yaoyorozu-san. Midoriya-san added. Suddenly it felt distant, him calling her that way. It just sounded wrong, and didn't sit well with her. Momo's friends referred to her differently. You can call me Yaomomo. We're friends, right? Midoriya-san blinked, giving her the perfect impression of an adorable, lost puppy. Then he smiled softly. Only if you drop San from my name. Fair enough. She nodded happily. Now I'm pumped for today. It'll be a glorious baby-making day. Mei jumped up and down, showing her excitement. Oh no, you don't, Power Loader Sensei stated in a tone that holded no room for argument. What? Mei stopped, her eyes and mouth wide. But why? Don't get me started on how you blew up entire workshop again on Thursday. For now you're banned. If you get your own space, then you can go blasting it whenever you want. But it wasn't my fault really. Mei whined, dropping her head down. Not even an ounce of her usual cheerfulness remaining. So that confirmed Momo's theory about Mei being the explosive student, as how Midoriya put it. In her head she knew that it was most likely deserved punishment, but it didn't change that she felt bad for her. Sad Mei was just something unnatural. Faint muttering reached her, and she turned towards Midoriya, who was in his thinking pose. She thought that she heard cogs turning in his head. Suddenly he stopped, and looked at Power Loader Sensei. Hey, Power Loader, are there any unused rooms, or the ones empty, are used as a storage? He asked in hopeful tone. Yeah, at the ground floor. Why you ask? Teacher answered slightly dumbfounded. Midoriya smiled brightly. How about me, and Mei take one? I need a space for future projects anyway, and Mei is my baby-making partner. She heard loud cheer from his classmates, and pleas for Power Loader to grant permission for it. She saw Mei literally glowing at the possibility of her own lab, and catching Midoriya in a bear hug. Midoriya, Power Loader said in serious voice, causing room to go silent. He stepped forward, and put his hand on Midoriya's shoulder. Your sacrifice will be remembered. Momo felt that those words shouldn't be spoken toward a student with such gravity, but Midoriya just nodded and laughed it off. Mei, still hugging her partner, was blissfully unaware, probably already thinking of her own lab. I'm happy for you too, Momo said with a kind smile. Unfortunately I need to get going. Thank you for a wonderful support item, Midoriya. No problem, Yaomomo. See you later. He waved at her. Bye, Yaomomo, Mei exclaimed with her Cheshire cat grin. Momo made her way out of the support building, and jogged towards the training ground beta. Alan told her where the lesson would be, for which she was very thankful for. She promised herself that she'd visit her inventor friends in their own workshop in the near future. Chapter 10. Close Encounters. She was ecstatic, overjoyed, and simply couldn't contain her happiness. She barely was able to sleep at night. Her own lab, second week at UA, and she already got her private working space. Well, she'd share it with Izuku as a good baby-making partner would. She already saw the utter gloriousness of it. Both of them tinkering with their cute, adorable babies. She couldn't wait. They'd found a spacious room yesterday, filled with broken equipment, and decided to claim it. Power Loader showed them where to put it all. Izuku suggested to sort it through, and try to find any useful parts for them to use. She complied. The more components, the more babies they'd be able to make. They used all 3 lab hours, and 1 extra after school to get most of it ready. She was glad that Izuku suggested getting ice creams later. They deserved it. Now after almost half an hour into their afternoon period, the room was clear of any and all scrap. Only things left were 2 workbenches, few racks filled with the salvaged parts, and shelves that'd allow them to store things like bolts, rivets, and so on. They've found 2 3D printers that could be fixed, so they left them in the corner. Izuku already claimed a place for the holotable, which was perfectly in the middle of the room, and between their workbenches. Now she wouldn't need to cross half of the room to use that marvelous baby. It was good thing that Izuku thought forward, when he was building it, and already added wheels, which were hidden from plain sight, courtesy of the framework. They could simply push it out of their class lab, and use the elevator to transport it down. She didn't know how otherwise they would haul it. Probably make a baby to do it for them. Yeah, that sounded about right. She stood at the center of the room spinning in circles. Using her imagination, she could see herself, and her Izuku change the whole room into the best workshop in the whole Japan. Wait, her Izuku, was he hers? He's her partner in the glorious mission of baby making, so yeah, he was hers. Oh, they should get bean bags, just like the one she had in home. Better, one bean bag. Then they would have to share it, and that funny feeling in her stomach would be even stronger, like every time she touched him. She honestly had no idea what it was, but she didn't care. Babies, and Izuku was more important. Speaking of Izuku, Mei thought that he was taking his time. He left about 10 minutes ago, to get cleaning supplies. Maybe she should go find him. Nah, he was big boy, and could handle himself. So she decided to wait for him. Patiently. Patience wasn't her forte. She stepped outside the room, and looked around. There he was, standing next to the staircase, all bottles laying on the floor. He spoke in a hushed, urgent tone, and had a concerned look on his face. Mei tilted her head. Last time she saw him like that was when he told her about that whole villain's secret mission to steal something from school. She still had goosebumps from that thought. She walked closer, but he didn't seem to notice her. She managed to somehow hear some of the words he spoke. It looked like he talked with principal about something very serious. It involved police. Was someone in trouble? He, she, both of them. She observed him until he ended his call. He sighed heavily, and hid his face in his hand, while shaking his head. Izuku, she finally said in unsure tone. He tensed a bit, and after few seconds looked at her right in the eyes. She didn't like the look he held. It made her stomach churn. He opened, and closed his mouth several times. He sighed it again. The USJ is under attack, he stated dreadfully. USJ, oh, right, that was that super facility away from the main building, that Yamomo told them during lunch. She and her class were going there today for a rescue training. She looked really excited at the possibility of learning how to conduct a rescue operation. She even told them the sheer number of things she knew how to create to help people in distress. Her brain finally caught up to her thoughts, and pieced together all the information. USJ under attack. Izuku's fearful expression. Police. Yamomo being there. Her heart clung, realizing that her friend was in trouble. Momo rubbed her eyes for what seemed to be 1,000 times, and took another deep breath. Somehow they managed to survive it. Somehow she and her classmates were still alive. Somehow, she didn't believe in luck, but right now she felt like she'd used all of her yearly supply of it. She breathed slowly, held the air, and released it even slower. She walked through everything in her mind one more time. After their arrival at the USJ, and 13's inspirational speech, the lights flickered, a black portal with purple outline opened, and a horde of villains poured from it, into the facility. Aizawa-sensei barked an order to retreat, and jumped into the fray, trying to buy them time. Unfortunately the villain with the warp quirk stopped them from escaping. He stated that their only goal was to kill All Might, which honestly froze blood in her veins. That was a very bold statement. Before the villain could scatter them through USJ, Kirishima-san and Bakugo tried to attack him. Tried being the key word here. Black mist enveloped them, and they just disappeared. Soon more were to follow. She found herself dropped into the mountain zone, along with Jiro-chan and Kaminari-san. She tried to contact with the school Trough Allen, but something was blocking the communication. And just when she thought it couldn't get worse it did. Producing a titanium staff for her, and a sword for Jiro-chan, which she hastily asked for, they fended off villains that attacked them relentlessly. She was glad for all those self-defense lessons that she took as a young girl. She didn't know if she was supposed to be terrified, or outraged when she heard someone say that she would be a great plaything. She really wanted to smack that guy. Hard. She and Jiro-chan somehow managed to defend themselves, beating down about 10 thugs. Before they could congratulate themselves for that, she witnessed something that under normal circumstances would be utterly hilarious. Kaminari-san running around like a headless chicken, screaming, and even begging for his life, wasn't something that gave her comfort. When he said that they can rely on him, after Jiro-chan changed him into human stun gun, she lost all hope for a second. But then idea struck her. Searching her mind for specifications, and feeling the familiar strain of her quirk turning her lipid cells into other matter, she produced an insulation sheet to shield her and Jiro-chan, then told Kaminari-san to let loose. She had to give it to him. Despite his low grades and carefree attitude, he had the potential to become a hero after the training UA would no doubt grind them through. That was until she saw him walking around with a dumb expression, which made Jiro-chan laugh out loud, and her just to blink. Thinking that danger had passed, she allowed herself to relax, and create a new leotard to replace the destroyed one. Maybe, just maybe they could try, and regroup with her classmates to increase their chances. But of course fate thought otherwise. A new villain jumped out of his hiding place behind a few rocks, and grabbed Kaminari-san, threatening them with his death. They found themselves in a pinch. She tried to distract the villain by talking to him, and allowed Jiro-chan to use her quirk combined with speakers to blast that guy away, but he saw through them. The rational part of her told her that this was it, that they'd lost. But other part, her hero spirit, screamed at her to do something. She found herself torn, not knowing how to proceed. She thought really hard on what she could do, and came out empty-handed. Momo felt that she should just give up. But then a memory came to her. It was that day, when she saw Midoriya in his workshop looking for her. She remembered how he told her about his dream, how he'd chosen the hardest way possible to achieve it. To show the world that he, Izuku Midoriya, didn't give up, and became a hero, despite possessing no power of his own. She latched onto that memory, thinking about his drive, his determination, and borrowed it from him along with his courage. She wanted to see him again. Him and May. Despite knowing the girl for only a day, she considered her a great friend. She wanted to see them, and spend time with them. Her mind went on semi-autopilot. In her outstretched hand a stun gun materialized, she created it faster than anything she ever did, and aimed it towards the villain's exposed leg. Before the thug could even do something, he was laying on the ground paralyzed. Then came a sound similar to bomb blowing up. She looked at the central plaza, and saw All Might, who held his hand high, above him huge hole in the ceiling of the facility. She was so focused on the standoff with the villain that she completely missed the symbol of peace arrival, and fight with, whatever he was fighting. Alan's voice suddenly resonated in her earpiece. She immediately started telling him what was happening, but he cut her off, stating that school knew, and reinforcements were almost there. She sighed loudly, allowing a wave of relief to embrace her. But she knew that it was far from over. Not even a minute later every teacher at UA arrived, and secured the whole facility in record time. They were gathered at the entrance, and she made a head count. Everyone was there, and almost completely unharmed. Only Ojiro-san had few minor burns, but other than that her classmates were relatively fine. She held her head high, trying to show her class that everything was all right now. They were packed into the bus, and transported back to the main building. After quick a change of costumes, they were ushered into their classroom. Two of the police officers came, and started asking them questions. To avoid a chaos that she was sure would come, she ordered her classmates, with a stark voice, to speak one at a time, and keep it rather short, telling only important things. After every one person was done, they were allowed to leave, and go straight to home. She was the last one to be released, and felt absolutely drained. Hearing all of her classmates' statements took a lot of her. She was both glad at how well they managed, and terrified by their experiences. Stopping near the school's main gate she pulled her phone out of her bag, intending to call a driver to take her home. She just wanted to sleep. Yao Momo. Yao Momo. She heard her nickname screamed by two people. She snapped her head toward the school, and saw Midoriya and May run at her. Fear and relief mixed on their faces. She took a short breath, and made sure that her face held a little polite smile, and her posture was as straight as it could be. She would bet her money that they already knew what had happened thanks to Alan. She needed to tell them that everything was all right. That she and her classmates were safe. That the villains were apprehended. Before she could utter a word, May all but slammed into her, nearly sending them tumbling, and hugged the life out of her. She had to give it to Pink. Inventor, she may be small, but she was really strong. She didn't get a chance to open her mouth, when another pair of arms embraced her. "It's okay now," Midoriya softly whispered into her ear. Her breath hitched, and her vision blurred due to the tears gathering in her eyes. She felt like a dam broke inside of her, releasing all the emotions she bottled during the last few hours. She moved her arms, and pulled them closer, crying into Midoriya's shoulder. They stood like that for God knew how long. Midoriya rubbed her back gently, and May just held her while pouring out her own tears. It was a bit strange to see her so emotional, but not unwelcome. May gave off the vibe of a utterly clueless person when it came to social relations, but it looked like she cared for her deeply. Slowly releasing them, and signaling them that she was better now, she took a small step back to peer at them. Midoriya did his best to look strong and reassuring, but his eyes shone with concern, and his body was tense. May hiccuped, and had dried tears marring her face. Momo guessed that she looked the same as her. "Thank you. I needed that," she admitted meekly. "No problem Yaomomo. Midoriya said, showing her a smile. Yeah, you're our friend. May added. Hell, you're my best female friend. She grinned, but soon it turned into a frown. Both of you are. I've never had friends before. Her voice was barely audible. Oh, that explained a lot. So she was kind of like her. She eyed Midoriya, who also looked like he had similar thoughts to his partner. So they all were similar in that department. This time Momo initiated the group hug, at which they both compiled. This one was different though. If the last one served to express their fears and concern for her well-being, then this one was to show the gratitude of having what they secretly always wanted. Friends. It was desirable state of being, she mulled in her head. I'm really thankful for having you too. Momo said, after the hug broke, and sent them her kindest smile. But I need to go home before the news reach my family. She hated to be the one to destroy the moment. We'll go with you, May stated seriously, which was odd for her. There's no need for that. You're right, Midoriya said with steel in his gaze. There's no need, but we want to do it. His voice denied her any room for the argument. She wanted to argue fee with them, but the looks they sent her left her with no such possibility. She complied, and found herself grateful for it. They trekked toward the train station in a slow pace, enjoying each other company. Suddenly Momo felt May grasp her hand with her own. She looked at the smaller girl, who just simply grinned happily at her. She was intrigued by how soft her palm was, despite her dealing with all kind of tools and materials. She didn't pull back. Soon enough she felt Midoriya's rough palm grab her other one, and squeeze lightly. His hand, despite its harsh skin, felt nice. Momo turned her head to him, just to see a kind expression with a small smile. She squeezed back. They didn't say a word during the train ride. They didn't need to. Momo just held their palms, and rubbed her thumbs against them to show that she knew what they were thinking, and thanking them for it. Occasional clutches were her answers. When they arrived at her stop on the suburbs of Musudafu, the sun was starting to go down. They exited the train station, and stopped on the sidewalk. Reluctantly they released their holds. Momo took step forward, and turned towards them with a serene expression, and small smile. She opened her mouth to say something, but once again was interrupted by them hugging her. She wasn't mad at that, and embraced them back. After full minute they returned to their previous positions. Nezu said that the school won't hold any classes until Friday. Midoriya said, so I've heard. She simply replied. But on Thursday it'll be open if someone wants to come, he added. We're going to finish cleaning, and arranging our workshop on that day. May said in excited tone. So if you want to. I'd love to. Momo cut her, already knowing what she was trying to tell her. They smiled at her, Midoriya with his warm one, and May with her Cheshire cat grin. She couldn't help but smile back. After what felt like hours they unwillingly went in their own directions. They went back at the train station, and Momo towards her home. She was somewhat sad that they had to part ways, but the thought of them stating that they considered her their best friend filled her with great warmth, and made her lips stretch into a large, joyful grin. If that was how a true friendship felt, then she would gladly accept it and return.
Part 2 ended. Thanks for watching.